Board. And I'm just so excited to be here this morning for all of this. It's been a really interesting week for me because, as you know, when we did, you invited me to do a podcast with you and Lana a couple weeks ago, and I was nervous about it, but kind of put my white glasses on, and I went and I did what I had to do, and found it was very similar to when I give workshops or talks places where I kind of, or even when I used to run the Women's Business Network meetings, where I kind of like left my body and let my inner wisdom and what it is that I need to do out. And it was so interesting when I listened to that podcast that was on your website that we recorded. I actually did not remember, like you would ask me a question or Lana would ask me a question, and I was like, oh, that was a good question. I wonder how I answered that. Didn't remember at all, but was surprisingly pleased with how I did it. And I know that within the Rise Above the Noise group and with the people that I'm working with in my individual accountability and mastermind groups, which there's another one starting, I think in just a couple of weeks, and I have a few spots left in that group. But what we're talking about is that it's like becoming visible and letting your true self kind of come out with no abandon. You have to filter yourself clearly, but to just be out there. And so what I've been using and what my accountability group has been using, and another group that I'm in is, well, first of all, these interviews that I'm doing, like if you can find a way to do Zoom interviews, a lot of people are doing Facebook Lives. I'm not completely comfortable with that personally yet, although I do it in some of my smaller groups. Of course, blogging, but that takes a little bit more time and effort. If you can find, this is going to be my tip for this week for anybody who's listening to this interview or this talk, is to find ways. Maybe it's through the Rise Above group, maybe it's through other groups that you're in, but find ways to collaborate and to connect with other people in your groups. And just do this. Have a little interview session and post it, or do a Facebook Live together and post it, or write for each other and share together and really help each other to become visible. And so that's kind of my little tip for this week as we're getting started. And I think that you had more to say on that whole Rise Above the Noise, Linda, but I'd love to give you your formal introduction. If that would be it. So today I am so excited, really excited to be here with Linda Pritchard and the others here. And I'm going to give you the official intro. So, and I wanted to ask you about this later too. As a certified Supercoach, and that's with a capital S, so we'll have to learn more about that. Trained and mentored by some of the top coaches in the world, Linda brings an understanding of the psychological principles. Oh, hold on, I got a little thing in there. Why here? Behind insight, clarity, and high performance into her work with clients, facilitating the powerful potential in them for breakthrough thinking, creativity, and the problem solving needed for personal and professional success. Yes. Linda has successfully helped women entrepreneurs, leaders, and difference makers to think bigger, be more confident, be self-assured, successful, and be more powerful than they ever thought. Linda holds a BFA in painting from the Rhode Island School of Design. She received fashion, shoe, and accessory design training from the Parsons School of Design and Fashion Institute of Technology in New York City. And after a career in the New York fashion industry, in the VP sales, design, and merchandising positions, she founded 2 shoe and accessory design businesses and has experienced firsthand the complex challenges that creators and entrepreneurs face. Here's the juicy part. Working with her, that was juicy too, but this is where we're here today for. Working with her clients, whether they're individuals or in business, experience a foundational shift with the fresh thinking and insights that allow them to move successfully forward doing less, creating, collaborating, and achieving more, and all with a sense of ease and the deep resiliency to negotiate life's challenges. And this I love. On Linda's website, her tagline is this: I can make a difference in your life, and you can make a difference in the world. Linda, this is awesome. Thank you so much for being here.
Ah, thank you. You know, that's the first time I've ever heard my bio read.
Oh, really?
It's always been written for me. I mean, I see it and I use it, but I haven't had anybody actually read it. So it's just like you were saying when you heard yourself on the podcast. It sounded like you liked it. You
I
liked
did.
what you had to say. And it's really interesting when you reflect on your life and you take time to do that, you can see that there are many things that you've done that all have been transitional to the place where you are now.
Oh,
And
boy.
so one of the things we'll talk about is the importance of that and how you get there. And I know we were talking earlier about rise above the noise and insight. And one of the insights that I had was to create the podcast. And one of the other insights that I had was to start a shoe line. And another insight was, excuse me, to accept your invitation to do this. And all of it is in a great flow of the choices that we make. And we make them more clearly when we have clarity. So, what I wanted to talk about was leveraging and leveraging the clarity, insight, and creativity connection.
Sounds
So
great.
one of the things that I think is really important for people to understand is when they know how something works, and I think this is a really practical thing that everyone can see. When they know how something works, they know how to use it. So if you learn how to use your computer, then you can use it in the ways that will support you. If you learn how to use a tool, if you learn how to use digital marketing, which is something that you do and help people with, then you know how to speak out in the world in a way that is authentic to you, is creative. And so all of that comes from insight. So what I thought I would start talking about is, well, what's an insight? And an insight is something that we have all the time. We have it in large and small ways. It can be, what do I want to have for dinner? Suddenly you don't know, and then you have an insight. Oh, yes, I want this. Or you go to a restaurant, or you decide what you want to do next. And so those insights are small, everyday kinds of things, something that you didn't know before, and then it comes into your mind. But they also occur in really major ways, like something that you've been maybe struggling with for a while and you let it go. And then suddenly you have an insight. Oh, now I know. An insight is an aha moment. And so it's a big moment of something that you didn't see before, and now you have clarity about it. And an insight is brought to you by thought. So we're thinkers, and as thinkers, we're having 100 or 1,000 or more thoughts a day.
Mm-hmm.
Most of them we don't pay attention to. Some of them we do. And an insight is brought to you by thought. So it's thought in the moment that you either pay attention to or not. It's thought in the moment that expands in your consciousness. And so that's where insight is always available to you because you're living in a sea of thinking. And an insight is coming along any moment. And it's just for you to see in that moment. Does that make sense to people? Do people have like I have most of my insights, the ones that I can really identify, because I feel like I get a download, come to me in the shower. And I think
Yes,
that's true for lots of people, right?
absolutely.
It's like, whoa, what is that about? It's really kind of wonderful. I guess because you're alone, you know, and the water is coming down on you, and you feel like you're in an enclosed area, and there's a quietness about that. And that's when lots of great ideas occur. They could occur when you're out for a walk. They could occur really at any moment, and they don't have to be in a quiet moment. You can have an insight in the midst of chaos and confusion and drama. The important thing is that you see and respect the insight that you have, that you know it's available to you, that you trust in that will happen. You will always have a new thought. So I wanted to talk about the connection between insight, clarity, and creativity. So an insight will give you a moment of clarity, that place where you feel calm within your own mind. And when you're there is when you can feel your connection to a deeper wisdom. Most of us are running around, you know, really up in our heads about things. We're lost in busy-minded thinking.
Mm-hmm.
But an insight can bring you into that moment of clarity. And I think everyone knows that that's true. It's just that they don't see it as a part of the human design. So one of the things I talk to people about a lot is the human design, that we were designed to thrive. We were designed to have insights. We were designed, and our natural state is clarity. And this is also true of confidence. Confidence is really our natural state. And you can see this in children, that, you know, before they have a lot of thinking or instruction about what they can and cannot do, they're full of confidence. But confidence gets lost in insecure thinking. So given that everything comes to us through thought, it's the only way we experience the universe that we experience individually, where we have opportunities that most of us don't know are there.
Yes.
You live in a world of clarity, and that leads to creativity. So when you're in a clear state of mind, you have the opportunity to be fully creative, to be fully human, to be fully connected to a deeper wisdom. And it's in that deeper wisdom that is all possibility.
This is amazing information. And I'm going two ways with it. One is I feel like, so insights, right? Insight brought me to create the Women's Business Network. Insight created a space for me to shift my business from being creating items to being of service to other people, with helping them with their digital marketing. This interview, like one thing after another, but it's interesting. I don't know that I would have called it insight. I wonder if I would have just said, well, it just seemed like the right thing to do. Maybe by labeling it insight, it makes it seem kind of like a bigger deal than it is. But it was like, oh, that seemed like the right thing to do at the time. Also, we have so many ideas in our heads. We're all so creative that how do you know which insight is the one to hop on? Right? Like,
I think your description of knowing what to do, that's it. It really is. It is. Insight is just knowing what to do in the moment. You just knew this, and then you knew to do that, and then you knew to do the next thing. And the more that you trust that that is at work in you, the more that you trust your wisdom is always at work in you. But it's whether you pay attention to it or not, whether you notice it. I mean, I think everyone knows those times when you've said, I know I should do this, and you did it. I know I should do that, and I didn't do it. And how many times have we all said, I mean, I'm certainly, me for sure, have wished that they had listened to that voice within. They'd listened to that wisdom at work within them, and they overrode it. And a lot of times people will override things because they get into their personal thinking and their insecure thinking. And that covers over that connection to wisdom. Everyone's going to have busy personal thinking. It's like, it's also part of the design. But when we see that that's just the only thing that's going on, like I'm caught in worried thinking. I'm worried that this won't go well, for instance, right? Like I could get very worried that this won't go well. Or I could just say, oh, I have some worried thoughts about how this won't go well. But as you were saying before, you just go ahead anyway, and you realize that that falls away. And when you get connected and really in the moment, in the flow of any given thing, whether it's a conversation, it's a choice about what you want to do, then all of those things fall aside. It's like listening to people. When you deeply listen to them, you hear things that you wouldn't otherwise. And when you are thinking about yourself in a conversation, then you don't hear what other people are saying.
Do you have, so that is so interesting too. That is so true. And I have found that too, my insights come, and maybe this is other people too, when you feel really in the flow of what you're doing. Like when you feel kind of stressed out, I don't know if I'm doing the right thing, then everything seems hard. But then that moment that you've done that one thing, I felt good after the podcast that I did with you. And then I'm like, okay, I am doing the right thing. And so then my insight was, this is what I need to share with people now, how you do what you need to do to get seen, to let people find you so that you can be of service to them. But also, I wonder if you have tips, tools, tricks to help people kind of recognize those insights. Or, I mean, a lot of people that I know, they meditate, right? They're like, oh, I'll meditate upon that. And they're waiting for the download. What kind of tips and tricks do you have for people to kind of recognize, oh, that was an insight, I should hop on that?
I don't.
Okay.
So insight is not something that you can have on demand. And the more that you chase anything like that, the more elusive it will seem, because you're looking outside. You're looking outside for a solution. You're not looking inside. So when you look inside, because the experience that you're having of this universe is created within you. Everyone is only experiencing their own thinking. So when you look to trying to figure things out, not that there aren't practical things like, you need to make dinner, so you need to figure out how to use the stove, and you have to do lots of things like that. But as a guiding force, figuring out is not actually the best thing. It is why people will often meditate. And yet I think there's something deeper than meditation. While that's a useful thing for people, and some people like it and some people don't, it's more useful to understand how our experience is being created in life. And that helps you to recognize insight, to see clarity and experience it. And then you have more of the same. And it's to look to the unknown, because creativity is the unknown, right? We're bringing something that didn't exist into form when we're in that act of creativity. So I think of creativity as like dancing in the unknown. You're free, you have a freedom of mind, and it's in that freedom of mind is where flow is. And the more that you look to trusting that, the more that you look to the unknown, not your storehouse of memories, not what you already know. I mean, if we just take a few seconds and think about that, in what you already know, there's history, but everything that's creative and unknown, and where all the juice and the joy is, really is in what you don't yet know. So the more that you look to that space, the more that you have opportunities to see what's possible and the more freedom of mind you can have. So I tell clients this all the time. It's a really simple thing that seems to resonate. Don't look for a clean shirt in your dirty laundry because it's not there.
That's brilliant. I wanted to, oh my gosh, I got so caught up. I'm having so much fun listening to you and learning. So like I'm writing it, I'm taking notes, but I'm gonna have to listen and write it in more detail. So much wisdom, right? So if folks haven't already, I would love to invite them to make sure to listen to your Wise Women Speak podcast. I put it on when I'm driving back and forth from Westport to wherever, and it's just, if you are ever feeling like, I don't know, listen, the voices are so calm, and the wisdom of the people that you speak to, I've really learned a lot through that. And they can get to that right through your website, lindapritchard.com.
Either go to wisewomenspeakpodcast.com.
Okay.
Or if they can find it via my website, lindapritchard.com,
right.
if they want to explore the website. And one thing, we talked about this at the beginning, and I don't want to miss saying it, because I told Susan before we started recording that when I was thinking about what I wanted to talk about, it occurred to me, and we can call this an insight or just a thought that I had that was relevant, is rise above the noise for me had a secondary meaning, which was to rise beyond your busy thinking. So rise out of your own busy-minded thinking into a space of clarity. So rise above your own noise, as well as rising above the noise that's out in the world.
I love that.
You do that through insight, clarity, and creativity.
Right. And once you get over in that point with the whole digital marketing, rising above the noise in your head and rising above that is where I try to bring in that calmness and the openness for people so that they can let their creativity shine without worrying. I should be doing this and I should be doing that. Create flow. I'd love to open it up for questions if you have a few more minutes. If anybody here has any questions for Linda. I did notice too, while you guys are thinking, I'm sure you'll come up with something. I wanted to mention that you had, when I asked you if you had a special offer for participants, you are offering a coaching session for people who kind of hang in and listen to our talk. And what would that look like? What is your goal in like just a discovery call coaching session with somebody?
Just checking into where they are, what's concerning them right now, what would they like help with? I mean, it could be a business problem. It could be how they're feeling stuck. I mean, we all get stuck at places in large and small ways. And so I really gear it towards whatever's on the mind of the person who comes to me, especially if we're just having a conversation. So I'm really open to helping people in any way that would serve them best. So for a session, it would be useful for people to consider what it is that they would like help with. And then that allows me to ask them the questions that would help provide the insights and the clarity for them to get unstuck, to get fresh ideas, to know what to do next.
That's wonderful. Thank you for offering that. That's very generous of you.
Yeah, and I did want to mention too that I have a program called Circle of Creators. It's a group coaching program coming up starting in November. So I wanted to let people know about that. And if they'd like to know more, just message me or send me an email, and I'll be happy to send them some information, have a chat with them about whether it would be a right move for them.
So that would be for people who are in the creative fields or creating a product or?
Yeah, no, it's interesting. I think I'm so glad you asked this too, because people often think that creativity is like some mysterious thing that some people have access to and they're creative and other people think that they're not. And
Yes.
that everyone is creative. We're creating all the time. And so this can be anything. You know, I work with a lot of creative people, but sometimes I work with people who want to start a business, moving out of corporate into something that they want to create. It could be a totally non-creative business,
Gotcha.
but they're creating it.
Gotcha.
So,
Oh, good. I'm glad we talked about that then. Somebody had a question.
yeah.
I do. I'm wondering, so if somebody wants to concentrate on their business through your coaching, do you first start with the person? Because ultimately we are our business, right? So do they come in together, or do you focus on just one thing at a time?
No, or perhaps I should say yes, I focus on them at the same time, not in sequence, because they're really inextricably linked. And that's a
Yeah.
great question, Andrea, because I think that what you have is, you know, we are our businesses, we are foundational. And to look to your own experience, how you're creating your experience of life, how that impacts every single thing that you do is really key to knowing who you are, why you're doing what you're doing, to strengthen that core understanding of your experience of life really strengthens how you can create in the world. So for instance, I have a client who I've been working with for um, 10 months now. Actually, I worked with her for 6 months, and then we took a break, and then she executed a lot of things, and then she wanted to come back for another 4 months. So we just created a different kind of relationship in that 4 months and focused on different things. But one of the things that I spent time with her about is just really getting clarity and on who she was, why she was doing what she was doing, and simultaneously how all of that impacted her business. And because I have the business skills, I've been through every imaginable experience in business, and that I was very helpful to her in that. And so we had a really great relationship.
Oh, that's great.
Does that
That's
help?
great. Yes, thank you. Yeah.
Linda, thank you so much for spending time with me this morning. It was great to see you again, and I hope that we'll
We've
spend
been
time
seeing
again.
a lot of each other.
I love it. I love it.
Great.
Awesome. Everybody, you guys have a great week. Give us each a call if you have any questions on anything we talked about today or anything digital marketing or creativity or insights. We'd love to hear from you. And we'll see you again next week, everyone.
Bye.
Thank you.